Hello again, everyone, and thanks for being here for Pod Bites with Verna. I'm Verna Collins Odoom, and today we're featuring a small business owner. His name is Jesse Locke, and he is a tailor by training and the owner of Locke Alterations, a small shop that does very detailed work and is located in Greensboro, North Carolina. Hello, Mr. Locke. Thank you, and welcome to Pod Bites.
Hello.
Hi. Well, I would call yours a great success story. 53 years in business. You continue to chart your own course. Nothing has shut you down. And of course, my family has known you for years. We've used your services. You have really been part of the fabric there in that city. So, of course, I wanted to call you when we hear about so many businesses shutting down and having financial difficulties. Wanted to call and ask you, how have you been able to make it through such a series of economic cycles over the decades? I'm going to start the timer now. Just wanted to ask you that. How have you made it?
Okay. F- Flexibility and being able to adjust to change. That's one of the key factors in being able to stay in business.
A lot of people talk about that, whether you're able to pivot, they call it, or make changes when things go in a different direction. What sort of changes did you have to make once you realized? I know we've talked about different economic terms. We talked about the recession of the 80s. We've talked about 2008 and the economic downturn then. But of course, the most recent is COVID-19, where people have had a lot of economic hardships. What sort of changes have you had to make?
Well, in the 80s, from the time I went into business in 1969 up until the 80s, business was pretty good. We was in mostly retail. In the 80s, because of the recession, we had to I had to pivot from retail to more into alterations, which was what I was trained to do. And so I had to make that transition, and it started in the 80s.
And so when you transitioned, did people follow you? Did you find that you had a hard time convincing people to do something different? You pivoted, did the customers pivot as well?
Well, I pivoted, and basically where I only was doing mostly alterations for the shop, then I started taking an outside alteration and start soliciting business and some corporate accounts, and that was the start of the transition. And from there, I acquired more customers other than the retail customer.
Okay. And so people kept coming. And did you ever really do a lot of advertising? Because I'm trying to think. We, of course, weren't there when you started your business, but did you ever do a lot of advertising?
Not really. The only advertising, I passed out business cards, but that was the only advertising that I did. Most of the, because I had contract with a major chain of stores, I was able to acquire customers, and so I did not have to do a lot of advertising. If not, I probably would have, but I was fortunate enough to have contracts, outside contracts.
Okay. And of course, word of mouth went a really long way because that's how my family found out about you. That, word of mouth, somebody saying, hey, there's somebody who does really good work. Go check him out. What's your thought about that? That the word on the street was that you did great work.
It is, and the words still work. It still works, but also the internet now. In today's world, I get a lot of Google hits because I question the new customer. How did you find out about me? And lately, most of the ones that are telling me that they found me on Google, they say I Googled you, and that's been the key recently.
Now, I know you, as I said, personally, and have been in your shop. For the person who hasn't been there, why would they want to come there? Tell me a little bit about the shop. Talk to people about what your shop is like and what you hope to convey when people come to get their clothes altered and taken care
Uh,
of.
Quality. I tell people you only pay once to get it right. If you're not satisfied, I give you a refund, and so I guarantee everything that I do. It's not when you leave the shop. I tell you if it's a month from now, a couple of months, you're not satisfied, come back. I guarantee all the work that I do, and I think that's what I try to assure people that I'm not going to leave you hanging. Just come back if you're not satisfied. That's all I ask.
And so people do come back.
They
And
do come
I
back.
know people come from all over. We've had people, even in my family, who will send you items from outside of the region, not just people walking in the door, but you also offer services like that, which maybe for a small shop, that's pretty surprising.
Well, some customers I've had and they moved away and they still come back. I have one customer's in Florida, and so when she's in town, well, she come by the shop, and I just UPS it to her when it's ready. And so that's been going on now for about coming up on about approximately 5 years.
I know the federal government has also been dealing and trying to do some incentives and trying to help out small businesses. Have you been able to benefit from any of that? And how about the infrastructure where you are? Are you able to get help as far as the downturn that we've seen with COVID? Have you been able to get assistance or have you needed assistance in any of those areas?
Well, I was able to get assistance. I was able to qualify for the self-employed unemployment, and that really was a tremendous help. And also, I was able to get a little break on my rent from my landlord. I think the city, I think the the government and all have been very helpful in the fact that they made it possible for individuals that are self-employed to be to get unemployment payments.
Okay. All right. And then I know that you are looking at some other options. I guess eventually you're thinking about retirement. Sometimes people are wanting to retire. Are you looking at that anytime soon, Mr. Lux? I know a lot of people rely on you. Or what's your thought on that?
I well, I tell people I'm going to work as long as I'm able to.
Mhm.
It's interesting, and this is a little point. I had one customer tell me I cannot retire before he did, and I had one to tell me I couldn't die before he did. And I
Oh,
told him
my.
to talk to God about that.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if you have control over all of those regions, but I think people have a lot of reliance on you and feel like you can do, great things. So that's definitely a vote of confidence, I would say. You also have been very, very involved downtown and seen a lot of changes downtown. Now, during this COVID situation, I would have thought that a tailor might not have that much work because people aren't really going anywhere as much. There are some people that still go out, do errands, go to various places. But as far as things that you might normally be working on, maybe you're not doing that as much. But you actually told me something I thought was pretty interesting. How are people? What are people bringing in at this point?
Well, they're bringing in some have lost weight during the pandemic. Others have gained weight during the pandemic. And I had a backlog the pandemic pandemic started. So I was able to work through for the first few weeks because downtown was like a ghost town for about almost a month. There was no traffic at all, but I was able to go in because I was on the ground floor level. The building was actually closed, but I was able to work because I did not have to go inside the building. My entrance is street level, and so that really helped. And and people will call, and some of them still need things done. And so my customers have been very supportive, and they continue to call and continue to come in. And it's up and down, but like I said, I was able to get what they call the pandemic relief from the unemployment. That's what they refer to it as, pandemic relief for the self-employed.
Everybody hasn't been as blessed or fortunate as you. There are some businesses that have had to shut down, as we were talking about. Do you know of any in your area that had that situation?
One I can recall is a candy store. It was relatively new, and it had only been in business, I think, not for, I'm not sure how long, maybe a year or so. And so people who have not been established very long, it's very difficult for them to survive. And it's not something people need, like candy. Now, some of the restaurants and they are still open. I don't know of any personally that have actually closed permanently, but the candy store did close down because of COVID.
And you have worked many years. You worked 6 days a week. We're almost out of time here, but I did want to get this question. And you've worked 6 days a week. You stopped doing that recently. What is your advice to a person who's interested in going into business for themselves or somebody who maybe is struggling right now at this point and doesn't know if their business is going to survive? Those are two different groups, I guess. What's your advice to those two groups?
My advice is stay focused on your business and just be prepared to be able to transition if you need to, and to be able to look at other options as to how you can do. One of the best, some of the best advice I got was my mentor, the gentleman I worked for. I asked him once, why did he check to see uh, what the competition was doing? And he said something very interesting. So if you're taking care of your business, you don't have time to worry about the competition. And so
Hmm.
I never forgot that. So I concentrate on my business and I try to see and I listen. I listen to what people are saying, what's going on around me. And so basically you can learn from just listening and listen to a good advice. You're going to get a lot of advice, but be able to filter out what apply to you.
Well, that is a lot of great advice. It sounds like you are going to continue to do great business until apparently you decide you're done doing it because it sounds like you love it. Would you say so? Is that this is pretty much your passion? I talk to people about their passions. I know we're out of time, but do you think this has been your passion in your life?
It has, and basically, it's the people. It's the people that I work with, and most of them have become more than just customers. They become very good friends.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm going to actually give some people, give the everybody who's listening some what we call bites to go, just interesting facts that you brought up, little tidbits for them to take home or to think about as they're at home. One of the things that you talked about here was flexibility. You said with change, you have to have flexibility, and you felt like that was one of the reasons that you have been able to survive 53 years in business. You also talked about you do quality work. You felt that that was important, and that's what kept people coming back and keeps them coming back to this day. And then the last thing you brought up, which brought a smile to my face, was to stay focused on your business. You said that somebody gave you that advice that if you spend more of your time focused on your business, you don't have time to get into other people's business and be concerned about your competition. So
That's
that
right.
is great. Thank you so much, Mr. Locke. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for having.
And all right, everybody, thank you again for coming. We appreciate your time as usual. Be sure to come back next Sunday. We're going to be back here and we will be able to talk to somebody else about what they're doing in their lives. Make sure you also go over to the website. That's podbiteswithverna.com, and you are able to go over there and get some more information from our guests, some things that are updated, and some other pieces of information that you might find interesting. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Sunday. Bye bye.